In this video, I'll take a look at some options for a self-invested personal pension in 2025, or SIPP for short. I made this video roughly about the same time last year, and there have been some significant changes since then that have changed the SIPP landscape. Some have changed for the better and others for the worse. By providing information and going through some of the top options, I hope to help you decide on the best option for you. I'll look at the pricing structure, as fees are understandably the most important consideration for many. Almost equally as important is the investment range offered by the provider, as when controlling how your pension is invested, you need to make sure you'll be happy with the investment options available. And I'll also cover features and functionality, such as whether they allow employer contributions and transfers. At the end of the video, I'll use my investment account comparison sheet that I've put together to compare all the options and show you which work out the cheapest in different situations. This comparison sheet includes many providers, even ones that are not included in a detailed run through in this video, so it is pretty comprehensive. If you'd like to gain access to this sheet to help with your own further research, you can get free access to it by signing up to my email list via the link below, and it should be sent out to you immediately after confirming your subscription. Make sure to check your junk folder. It will save you a lot of time because, speaking from experience, it takes a long time to trawl through all the provider websites and finding all the details. They don't at all make it easy for us. A quick disclaimer, whilst this video is not sponsored, I do have affiliate links for some platforms, which makes making these videos possible. These will give you a bonus if you sign up via them, and I will also earn a small commission. But to be clear, the presence or absence of an affiliate link has not impacted my display of information or overview here. Presenting the options fully and retaining your trust is the most important thing to me. The objective of this video is to help you make your own decision through the information provided. I hope that objective is also made clear through the spreadsheet provided as well. So, what is a SIPP? Like other types of pension, a SIPP is used to save up for retirement. But with the difference being, as the self-invested part of the name implies, you have a greater degree of control over how your pension is invested. It has major tax advantages, but these are different to the ones offered by a stocks and shares ISA. With a SIPP, you get tax relief on any contributions you make into it, with the amount of tax relief being based on your income tax bracket. This essentially means all your contributions are topped up by HMRC. I've used this chart in a lot of my recent videos, but it does display how this tax relief works perfectly. You can see that with the £100 pension contribution example, a basic rate taxpayer would only need to pay £80 into their SIPP, and the SIPP provider they use will automatically claim £20 from HMRC and add it to their account. For higher rate taxpayers, in addition, they can claim a further 20% back from HMRC by completing self-assessment, and this is a further 25% for additional rate taxpayers. So regardless of your tax bracket, you do get that nice top up on any SIPP contributions. Also, like an ISA, any investment returns or dividends received within the SIPP wrapper are not taxed. However, unlike an ISA, you do pay tax when you withdraw from a SIPP, and the exact amount of tax you pay does depend on how you choose to withdraw and the income tax rates at the time of withdrawing. The biggest difference for an ISA, though, is that you can only withdraw from a SIPP when you reach a certain age determined by the government. That is currently age 55, but from 2028 it will be age 57, and beyond that, who knows, but let's hope the government doesn't raise it too much higher. One other thing to keep in mind about SIPPs are the allowances. You can open as many SIPPs as you want and contribute to them all, as long as the total contributions across all your pensions, including workplace pensions, does not exceed the £60,000 annual allowance or 100% of your salary. There is also currently no lifetime allowance, although, like everything mentioned in this video, it could be subject to change. So, that's the basics of what a SIPP is. Due to the tax advantages, it is one of the most efficient ways to invest and can lead to a much greater final portfolio balance than the same contributions into an ISA, for example. Of course though, as it is a pension, you do have to take into account access age and tax on withdrawal. I personally like to use both an ISA and a SIPP to give myself more options and flexibility. I'm not a financial advisor though, and this is a very simple run through of what SIPPs are. Everyone's circumstances are different, and if you're unsure about whether a SIPP is for you, please do your own due diligence and seek advice from a regulated and qualified financial advisor if required. Remember that when investing, your capital is at risk, and I'm displaying information, not providing financial advice. Speaking of regulation, before I move on to looking at the SIPP options, I want to make clear that all the providers featured in this video are authorised and regulated by the Financial Conduct Authority. This is the bare minimum you should look for when looking at any investment platform. You can also check this yourself for any provider by simply searching for their name on the FCA register. Okay, the first SIPP provider I'll look at is Vanguard. Now, Vanguard has been one of the top and most popular choices for a SIPP for a long time. As they put it themselves, they have over 45 years of experience, and many people like having their pension with such an established and reputable provider. However, as many of you may well be aware by now, they have recently announced some unpopular changes which may make them a poor choice now for some. And this change is in regard to fees, one of the most important things for long-term investors. At the moment, Vanguard has a platform fee of 0.15% capped at £375 per year. A percentage fee like this works out very well for smaller portfolios, and the £375 cap means once your SIPP pot reaches a certain size of £250,000 in this case, any further growth will not lead to any more fees, platform fees. The fee cap is a bit on the high side, but other than that, this was quite a competitive fee structure for all portfolio sizes. However, from the end of January, for investors with total balances below £32,000, the platform fee is changing to a flat fee of £4 per month. This equates to £48 per year, which could work out to be a significant percentage of portfolios below that 32k mark. The big problem with this change is that it is now incredibly expensive in percentage terms to start a pension on the Vanguard platform. So it does give the impression they're not interested in those with smaller pots or those starting out. Looking at other fees to consider, Vanguard has no dealing fees if you use their batch once per day dealing, or £7.50 if you want to buy a specific quote. I can't say I've ever heard of anyone using this £7.50 service, but it's worth mentioning. As it has no dealing fees if you're using that batch service, this also means that Vanguard has no fees for dividend reinvestments or for setting up a regular buy, unlike some other providers. And the final fee I'll mention for all providers is the foreign exchange fee, but in the case of Vanguard, this is not applicable because Vanguard, as far as I'm aware, only offers investment options that trade in GBP. That brings us nicely onto the investment choice. Vanguard's investment range is the most limited of all the platforms in this video because they do not offer individual stocks, and in terms of funds, they only offer their own ETFs and mutual funds. According to their website, they have 86 funds to choose from, including both ETFs and mutual funds. They do count the income and accumulation versions of funds as one though, so if you count them separately, then these numbers will be higher. Regardless, you are limited to Vanguard products, and thus it is probably the provider with the least investment choice. Lastly, I'll go over features and functionality. Vanguard does have both a web app and a phone app. The phone app is very new, and from what I've heard, it is very basic. But again, you could argue that it is simple and does the job. The SIPP does have both transfers and drawdown functionality, and they do offer company contributions, but they do clarify you do have to be a shareholder or director of the business. The final thing worth mentioning about Vanguard is that they do not offer fractional shares of ETFs. This can be annoying. For example, one share of the Vanguard S&P 500 at the time of recording costs around £90. So if you have less than that in cash, then you're unable to invest it and will have to sit on it until you have enough cash for a whole share. For this reason, some people may prefer mutual funds as this does not apply and the full amount of cash can be invested. Moving on, next on the list is InvestEngine. The InvestEngine SIPP was brand new when I made this video last year, and it was competitively priced, but it has become even cheaper recently. On the 9th of December 2024, they changed the SIPP account fee to $0. Resultingly, it's going to work out to be one of the cheapest platforms to use regardless of portfolio sizes, as you can't really beat $0 account fees. Of course, it's worth remembering that third-party ETF cost will apply, which is the case regardless of which platform you use. Also, if you want a hands-off approach, they do offer a managed service for a fee of 0.25% per year, and there's also the recently launched life plan portfolios with the same fee of 0.25% plus fund costs, and these are very similar to Vanguard's life strategy portfolios in that they offer different allocations of bonds and stocks to suit investors of different risk tolerances. Looking at other fee categories, InvestEngine has no dealing fees and therefore no fees for reinvesting dividends or setting up a regular buy, and FX fees are not applicable because they only offer ETFs that trade in GBP. So InvestEngine is definitely an incredibly cheap choice, regardless of whether you go for DIY or managed. Moving on to the investment range, InvestEngine is an ETF-only platform. So if you're interested in individual stocks or mutual funds, then it's not the platform for you. But when it comes to ETFs, they offer over 700 from a range of different providers, including iShares, WisdomTree, Xtrackers, JP Morgan, and Vanguard. They had around 600 ETFs when I made this video last year, so you can see they are constantly increasing their range. You're not missing out on the popular Vanguard funds, but you have the added benefit of being able to access a range of options from other providers as well. It is worth noting that it is cheaper to hold Vanguard ETFs on InvestEngine than Vanguard itself, especially with the Vanguard fee change. That's because you don't pay any platform cost, you're just paying that Vanguard fund cost. In terms of additional features, InvestEngine does have both a phone app and a website. These are modern and do offer a number of features such as automated investing through savings plans, easy rebalancing, and my favourite, portfolio look-through, which allows you to get detailed analytics into your portfolio, going as far as how much money you've indirectly invested into each company. This is a really enjoyable feature to use for me and makes your investing feel more real. And it's also worth mentioning that unlike Vanguard, it does offer fractional shares, so uninvestable spare change is avoided. However, transfer and drawdown functionality is where we get to some of the cons of the InvestEngine SIPP at the moment. They currently only offer transfers in from the Vanguard platform, so this is an improvement from last year, but hopefully we will see wider transfer rollout soon. It's worth checking because by the time you're watching this video, it may have been rolled out further. And in terms of drawdown, there's currently no functionality, and thus the InvestEngine SIPP is definitely for the accumulation stage of your pension at the moment. And they also do not accept employer contributions at the moment or from your own limited company, so this does rule out the InvestEngine SIPP for some. Overall, despite this, taking everything into account, the InvestEngine SIPP is certainly a super competitive option for a lot of investors in 2025. I personally decided to start contributing to a SIPP on InvestEngine last month, and I have been a user of their ISA for nearly 2 years now. And for what it is worth, I have been very happy with my choice. The next SIPP provider I'll look at is Hargreaves Lansdown, which, like Vanguard, is another option that may be attractive for those who like established platforms, as it has been around since 1981. Now, in terms of fees, it's best to turn to the HL website to show this, as they are one of the providers that make their fee structure quite complicated. First of all, in terms of platform fees, it differs on whether you invest in mutual funds or shares, which includes ETFs. So if you invest in mutual funds, the first £250,000 has an annual platform fee of 0.45%, and then it does scale down after that, but it is pretty much uncapped unless you have a portfolio above 2 million, which must be a tiny amount of people. On the other hand, if you invest into individual stocks or ETFs, the 0.45% platform fee is capped at £200 per year. So it may work out quite expensive for small and medium-sized portfolios, but due to this cap, it can actually work out to be reasonably cheap for those with larger portfolios. Interestingly, significantly cheaper than Vanguard. Where HL does get expensive though is when we look at dealing fees, with each deal having a charge of £11.95. This does scale down if you have more than 9 deals in a month, but I personally would avoid making too many deals if I had my SIPP with HL. This fee is not the end of the world though, as it can be avoided if you set up a regular buy via direct debit, as there is no fee for dealing this way. They also charge no dealing fee for reinvesting dividends, so that is a positive as well. The final fee to look at is the FX fee, and Hargreaves Lansdown is expensive here. It starts at 1%, but does scale down after the first £5,000 of a trade. You certainly want to keep this in mind before buying or selling shares that trade in a different currency, as it can represent a significant cost. Whilst there are ways to make HL fees reasonable, my biggest critique here is that it is unnecessarily complicated, and I do not believe most beginner investors know the difference between mutual funds and ETFs, and you do have to go digging to find that there is no dealing fee for topping up via direct debit. I believe they should make this clearer. Moving on to the investment range, this is one of the big positives of HL, with it having the most comprehensive investment range so far. They offer mutual funds, ETFs, and individual stocks. Whilst I can't find an exact number, the number of investment options is in the thousands, with plenty of both passive and actively managed funds for investors to choose from. In terms of features and functionality, they have both a mobile app and a website. I have experience of using both, and whilst the website does look pretty dated, it does provide extensive information about the fund options, and I do find myself using their website quite often to research funds, even though I don't currently use the platform itself at any account. The phone app is surprisingly quite modern and works pretty well. There are not really any fancy features like InvestEngine, but it does the job. HL does offer both transfers and drawdown, so it is a viable option for people of all stages. And they also do accept employer contributions. It does have the same problem as Vanguard in terms of fractional shares. These are not offered, so if investing into ETFs and individual stocks, you may be left with that uninvestable spare change sometimes. Overall, HL may be a solid choice for those who want an established platform that offers all investment options, mutual funds, ETFs and individual stocks, as well as complete functionality. I'm not a fan of the complicated fee structure, but I do think that once you familiarise yourself with it, there are ways to limit the fees you pay, and it can work out to be pretty cheap for larger portfolios. The last provider I'll give a run through of in this video is another platform I see discussed a lot, Interactive Investor. In terms of fees, it's actually split into two. If your SIPP portfolio has a value of less than £50,000, you pay £5.99 per month, and then once your portfolio is worth more than 50k, you move on to the £12.99 per month plan. What this means in practice is that Interactive Investor's platform fee works out to be comparatively very expensive for those just starting out, and also for those that just surpass the 50k mark and move on to the more expensive plan. However, on the other hand, for larger portfolios, the £12.99 per month plan will work out pretty cheap because that equates to a fee cap of £155.88, which is of course lower than the cap of HL and Vanguard, for example. Interactive Investor does have dealing fees, and these will need to be considered. These are £3.99 for UK and US shares and £9.99 for dealing other international stocks. Like Hargreaves Lansdown, you can get around this by setting up a regular buy, as when topping up your positions this way, there is no dealing fee. Interactive Investor does have a dividend reinvestment fee of 99p though, so whilst it's not a lot, you'd probably want to stick to accumulation funds so you don't have to pay that charge anyway. And the final fee is the FX fee, and this is very expensive on Interactive Investor at 1.5% on the first £25,000 of a transaction. So this is something you definitely need to take into account if wanting to buy stocks listed in a different currency. Moving on to the investment range, investors are spoiled for choice here, with thousands of mutual funds, ETFs and individual stocks to choose from. In terms of features and functionality, Interactive Investor does have a website and a mobile app. This is the only platform in this video that I've never used myself, so I can't really comment on how good or bad the app and website are. It is worth reading reviews on Trustpilot to see what others think here. And finally, features and functionality. Interactive Investor does have both transfers and drawdown functionality, and they do accept employer contributions. So like HL, it offers all three of these functionalities that may be key to your decision. It does not offer fractional shares, however. Overall, my verdict for Interactive Investor is that I can see why it would be attractive for those with large SIPP portfolios already, but for those just starting out or just breaching the 50k mark, it is quite expensive. That is the problem with flat per month fees, unfortunately. So I hope that run through of 4 SIPPs was handy. I'm well aware that there are many more options. That is why I put together and keep updated my investment account comparison spreadsheet that lets you compare many more options. I'll give a quick run through now to show you how it works and how you can use it to find the best SIPP for you. On the tab called SIPP Details, you'll be able to go through everything from fees, investment range, functionality, Trustpilot review score, and my comments at the end. What will perhaps be even more handy is the example annual cost tab. This shows example costs at different portfolio sizes. Please keep in mind this is for portfolios of ETFs or individual stocks. Some providers have different fee structures for holding mutual funds, so take that into account if that is what you're interested in investing in. The cheapest option for all portfolio sizes is of course InvestEngine with its 0 account fees, but we can also see that after the change, Vanguard will be more expensive than HL for portfolios of £10,000 or less, which is quite surprising to say. For larger portfolios, Vanguard is actually the most expensive provider on this comparison. But to be honest, all providers are quite competitive at this end, and it will come down to individual choice. I do want to give a quick mention to Fidelity here, which is not often mentioned, as this does work out to be quite cheap due to it having a platform fee cap of £90 when investing into ETFs. It is important to remember though that these fees in green are just the platform fees, and you need to also consider all the other fees you'll pay when using the platform and making investments. Dealing fees and FX fees can stack up depending on what type of investor you are. A good thing to make note of is that a lot of these providers usually have some sort of cheaper deal for those who activate a direct debit or regular investing plan. So this may be a way to save on costs. To end the video, let's answer the question, which is best? And I'm sorry, the answer is going to be quite boring, but indeed sensible. The answer is, it really depends on what you're looking for and what you value. The cheapest for all portfolio sizes is InvestEngine, with 0 account fees for the DIY option, meaning you only pay third-party ETF costs. It does have the most modern and slick app and set of features too. However, if you need employer contributions or you want to invest in more than just ETFs, then it's clearly not suitable for you, and one of the more established providers will be better. Regardless of which platform you're leaning towards, I would recommend using my spreadsheet yourself to help you with your research and decide on the best platform for you. As I say, what's suitable for me may not be suitable for you. That is it for this one. Let me know in the comments below your thoughts and if you think there's anything I've missed. If you enjoyed the video or found it helpful, please consider leaving a like and subscribing. It's greatly appreciated and really helps the channel. As always, thank you for watching.